it takes 25 years. To grow more than a quarter inch is 25 to 50 years, depending on what side of the building it's on, sunny or not, trees nearby or whatever, but at least 25 years of unchecked growth. This connection here, how many years on average? At least 25? Now, when you walk up fire escapes, you're taking this risk, and I'm going to show you what risk you're taking. We're going to be showing you a hammer test. This hammer test is not part of a fire escape inspection. It's part of a safety inspection on our part, whether or not we can walk on it. So since you guys are not walking around with 3-pound hammers in your hand, it's called a ping-pong test. If it pings, we can keep on going doing our inspection. If it pongs, that means it's full of rust, and this is what you're getting. So that's why you're not going to be doing any more inspections. Three-pound hammer. Got it? I think that's it, yeah. We're not going up anymore. Got it? You're walking on hand grenades all the time. And the pins are already pulled out.
Yeah.
So we're going to show you that you can look at a fire escape and you're looking for evidence of maintenance. You're looking for hex head bolts. You don't see any. That means what in 75 years? Can I leave a car outside in the sun and in the rain for 75 years and expect to open the doors on it? Will the engine turn? Will the lights come on? People have been living these fire escapes out for 75 years, and all you can prove is that it's been kept painted. But how can square heads, which are 50 to 75 years old, and rivets, which are older, they're 75 to 100 years old, how can they survive in this weather without constant painting, which is on average is every 5 to 7 years? Have you ever seen any building religiously painting their fire escapes every 5 to 7 years? Let me go back up one. Cantilevers. One of the biggest issues with cantilevers, take a look on your drawings on the back. We're going to go into detail. But everybody knows what a release arm on a cantilever is, right? All right. How many people remember seeing in their city chains on the back of the cantilevers? Okay?
Or dumpsters on them.
As soon as you see a chain on a cantilever, let me tell you what that is. Cantilevers in the past were built perfectly balanced. And you fill these boxes in the back to counterweight all the weight with brand new steel or junk steel from your shop. You put junk steel, bricks, cement, anything you can find that you want to get rid of, you fill these boxes with because, you need 1,000 pounds in this box. Now, do you seal them 50, 75 years ago? Water gets in there and rust grows 5 times its size. So a quarter inch will become over an inch of rust and accumulate weight. So what do you think happens on these fire escapes when they start pointing to the sky? You're going to walk by a building and allow this to continue? Or you're going to scratch your head and look at it and write a violation? So what I do, I go to Home Depot because, I got a quote to fix this thing and rebalance it in a couple $1,000. I went and got $20 worth of chain from Home Depot, and I tie the tail right here, and I would pull it up and I'll grab anywhere I can, and I'll grab that tail and I'll pull it up and grab it anywhere I can, and I'll chain it up horizontally. So any chained fire escape, balanced or unbalanced? Unbalanced. So now let's take a little. You guys know that a woman and a child has to come down the stairs. Same here, right? Come down the stairs. And then if this thing was perfectly balanced, a woman and a child would have to come down the stairs, and this is what she has to do on a fire escape that has a chain on it, or it's perfectly balanced or out of balance. 150-pound woman, 50-pound child she's dragging behind her, 12 to 14 feet up in the air, right? So she comes down, and she steps out 1, 2, or 3 steps, and the thing's got a chain on it, and it's weighted backwards. Is it going to go down? No. So she keeps dragging the child, and it must be single action, requiring no special knowledge. That's another important thing. So she's now working at a circus because she's now got to sort of learn how to balance her and her child's weight. And she goes out 3 to 5 steps. Will that start working that thing? On average, yes. But every now and then, no. So 5 to 8 treads. So she's halfway out the cantilever, and she's got the child in tow, and she's walking gingerly out. What finally starts to happen? The cantilever comes down. Now this cantilever is going to come down, it's supposed to come down by itself. When you release it, that's why it's called a release cantilever. You release it up here, it drops 2 to 3 feet per second, hits the ground, stays down. So she can self-evacuate. That makes sense, doesn't it? But with the chain on it, we got it backwards. She is now the counteract balance, and she goes down, she's halfway there, the thing starts falling 5 to 10 feet per second. She slams the ground, and what do you think might happen to her and her child?
Loses the grip.
She either gets ejected, but for some reason she holds on, she starts screaming, the kid starts screaming, and she holds on after that violent smash. And it twists and turns, because you think cantilevers are beautiful, they hit there's no noise, or they just start twisting and turning all over the place. So she goes down the rest of the steps, she's 150 pounds, she's got a 50-pound child, and then she steps off the cantilever. What do you think happens to the kid? So the kid goes up 12 feet, and the kid now has 2 choices. He gets catapulted, okay, or the little girl holds on. So the mother's downstairs, just got out of the fire, saved herself. The child is up 12 feet, and the mother tells the kid to do what? Jump. She said, please jump, jump, jump. Right? And the kid's crying. You know how many kids that will jump 12 feet? Will you yourself jump 12 feet? So now the mother's screaming. There's no fire department there yet. This thing is supposed to be for self-evacuation, and right now we got a trap. So now you guys don't think a mother would actually go back into a burning building and repeat the process just to get her daughter off the cantilever, would she?
Oh, yeah, sure.
So just before she goes back into the building, who shows up? The fire department. The fire department says, "Hey, where you going?" She starts screaming, "My kid!" And they all run back into the alleyway. And the fireman says, "Oh yeah!" And all of a sudden, he goes and gets the pole, because yelling and jumping, the kid doesn't want to jump, right? So he goes there and he puts the pole up there. And he grabs the nose of the thing and does what? Pulls it down. Pulls it all the way down. Puts his foot on it, and the child does what with the mother? Reunites and continues with the process of what it's supposed to be. She's self-evacuating. She doesn't need any help. Her and her daughter just run away from the fire. Now, this fireman has got his foot on it, and it's a 6-man team fighting fires, volunteers, and whatever. Can you let go? No. You got 5 other guys now that got to get up this thing and fight fires and do whatever. And what's this guy doing? It's a doorstop. So you got a 6-man team that's now a 5-man team, because one of them is. And if there's anything falling or any fire happening, otherwise every time he needs to use it, somebody needs to pull this cantilever down. Does that make any sense? So cantilevers are supposed to be released, drop, self-evacuate, and whether the fireman shows up 1 minute, 10 minutes, or 1 hour later, the fire escape is what they use to get into the building. It's what they use to emergency evacuate out in case all hell breaks loose. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Take a look at a cantilever that's dropped. Work in the building. Think they're going to use the fire escape to work in the building?
On their way!
Getting directions from people that are not supposed to be telling me what to do about it. See, this is violent when it hits the ground. So it drops 2 to 3 feet per second. Hits the ground and stays down. Will that wiggle some people off this fire escape? If you're on it while it's falling? Torquing that's happening. Now it's this torquing that occurred in Chicago from a welded piece of ankle that was on it. There's another reason why fire escapes are 12 to 14 feet off the ground in alleyways.
You see cement trucks, high-end trucks, notorious for knocking these fire escapes down.
Now if this thing didn't have a release arm keeping it horizontal all the time, what do you think would happen if the nose was ever so slightly down on this thing? Can you see that cantilever up there?
Escapes are 14 feet off the ground. Very reason. Now let's see how close it's going to get to that weight system.
See the chain? It's an afterthought. See that chain right there? Now it's for that reason on that cantilever that a piece of angle was on it that was a stiffener, that when it hit the ground and it twists and turns all that time, that an angle that was welded on it 25 to 50 years ago snapped all the welds. And who did it hit? Did it hit the landlord? Did it hit the building inspector? Did it hit a fire marshal? Did it hit the management company? Did it hit anybody of significance? Or did it hit some poor slob who was just working the building and using the fire escape to get on and off every day for 2 months? And when that poor guy is going up and down, I don't know the exact activity, but if something was making noise and welds were popping, do you think a worker would tell anybody that he broke the fire escape on his daily use? Can you even use fire escapes as a working platform without authority from the building department and the fire department? You can. I just have to take it offline. I have to create some other system for them to get up off the building, maybe another scaffolding or something. Because maybe sometimes on the fire escape is the only way. But can I be working on a certified fire escape, or do I have to work on a fire escape that now the management company or the masonry company is taking full responsibility for any and all activity? Because then after the work is done, do we need to recertify? So this fire escape was certified a month before, was then pressed into service a month later, and a month to 2 months later is when that piece finally fell off. Now, the significance of that is that the guy who got his head opened and almost died sued everybody. So it sued everybody, including the city. Now, the city is now accepting these confidence tests, which were opinion tests. So I was in a room with depositions, and there was 8 lawyers in there with pointing fingers. Who do they think they want to blame? They want to blame the architect, the last guy who walked out of there. They want to blame the guys who fixed it. They want to blame everybody but the fact that the thing needed a critical examination. And they were accepting opinion tests with disclaimers. They don't do load tests. So now, because of all the activity, we then generated a confidence test. We then generated an opinion letter, which we're going to share with you, that says, every time any one of you write a violation on a fire escape, I write a letter back to you saying, I've got 3 possibilities to fix this fire escape. Do you want an opinion? And I can write a bunch of disclaimers. That's the Band-Aids. Fix only what I see broken. Do you want a calculated load test, which means I will investigate everything seen and unseen? Or do you want a load test to certify this fire escape and remove the violation? You tell me. And everybody lands in number 2. Says, no, I want you to fix everything that you can't see, which is 97% of a fire escape. And the 2%, the 3% of the fire escape, which is the welded connections, I want them nullified. Either x-ray them or bolt them, right? As soon as you bolt a weld. Anything else we need to do? It's backed up, isn't it? How about the connections into the wall? We can either expose and blow out the bricks and get into it, or can I just nullify it with another Hilti bolt? Keep the original? Give me another one? Let sleeping dogs lie, because there now you open up a wall, what do you find? Other problems, right? So we're going to go over that. This is in Waltham. We did an inspection on towers, on the fire tower. They were using this building up to the day that I inspected it. And when I started doing the hammer test, look at all the treads that fell. These are the treads inside the structure that gets water every day. 1/2 inch of rust. So even firemen have issues. This is the Chelsea homes up on Chelsea Hill. 1 inch of rust. If the war didn't kill you, the fire escape will. Hits, smashes, trucks. Some of these things are smashed and then nobody pays attention to it for years. Fire escapes are the bastard child of egress for a reason. I think this is a Hebrew. Do you guys see all the missing treads there? Tom, there's your truck. This is a housing authority in Boston building. Not the housing authority, but basically a building for Section 8. See the missing treads? This is City Hall. So you may have fire escapes on your building that nobody's ever inspected because you're making everybody else inspect. But here's the biggest issue. 97% of a fire escape, I can see it on the outside. I can fix a tread, and I can identify whether a tread has or does not have any rust. A gusset has or does not have any rust. A rail has or does not have any rust. What I can't tell you is what's going on inside the building. On a 50 to 75-year-old building where the parapet wall has been leaking water in between the veneer and the masonry, guess what it does to the inside? See all these rusty tiers? Look at the steel above it. Looks solid? Look at the steel inside of it, though. It's all leaking. And until you open it up, you can't tell. But you know how much it costs to blow out with a mason, to blow out all these bricks and verify every connection into the wall? $200 to $500 a hit. If I come in and I take, see all this rod connection, and I basically put in a Hilti bolt 5 inches away, because I can either verify it by drilling a hole right next to it and verify that there's no rod. You know, so you can take a 3/4 hammer drill and just hammer drill right next to an angle or a channel, and then put in that probe that you get from Home Depot. You know, that little 3-foot probe with the light on the end. You go through it and take pictures. I'll show you what that looks like because we do it. But if I'm going to drill a 3/4 hole, if I drilled that hole, that same hole, 5 inches away, and I bury a Hilti epoxy bolt 8 to 12 inches deep, and then I put an angle clip mechanically fastened back to the original connection, and I mechanically fasten it. Can I let sleeping dogs lie? Have I duplicated the connection? Have I nullified the first one? Do I have to remove it, or can I keep it there? I'm still going to repack it, because I'm repacking at the veneer. Does the veneer do anything? Veneer doesn't do anything, right? The structure is 8 to 12 inches deep. So that's what the 3% of a fire escape is always dealing with, the connection into the wall. I'm going to cover how it's done into the masonry and how it's done into wood. The other one is just welded connections. And we've nullified welded connections with a bolt. Don't have to x-ray it. You just go in there and put a bolt in there. The weld stays. My bolt becomes the primary. You guys agree with that or disagree with that? Agree with that? Nullification of the wall. An epoxy bolt a little bit further. So I can do individuals all over the building, or if I have a 12-foot platform, can I put a 3x3 angle or a 4x4 angle running the whole length underneath the entire platform, tuck it up underneath every support, epoxy bolt every 3 feet, that piece of angle, and then however I can do it, I'll mechanically fasten back to the whatever support is there. Have I just unified the entire platform? Now, in order for that platform to come down to the ground, what must happen? Total failure of a wall. There's not going to be anybody on the fire escape anyway by then. So, does that make sense? Individual Hiltis, or just unify the supports to eliminate this need. So, do I need $200 to $500 per blowout of a brick wall to verify it? Because every now and then you can get in this. You can see the plate on the inside, because I'll show you some of those, but that's what we're going to be talking about today. How about missing parts, missing rails? I've got fire escapes that were built wrong 25 to 50 years ago. People think that it's grandfathered in. I tell them, if it was built wrong 25 to 50 years ago, it's not grandfathered in. This is another case that we were involved in where a fireman fell through. There was a fire. He had to go vent that, and there was a woman up there. As he went up there to the vent and get that woman out of there, 3 steps gave way, he fell through. 27-year-old, done, vertebrae shattered. What was unique about this case is that he sued the owner directly for negligence, because he proved in the case that the owner has not been maintaining his fire escape. That's what caused him to get hurt, not a work-related accident. And he won, because after this case, they settled. Now, when we went back there 2 years later to inspect this fire escape, those 3 treads were perfect. Guess what else? What else was all messed up and ready to kill the fireman? All the other treads. So we went up there, and this is where I'm going to teach you about fire escapes right now. Let me see if it's on. We're going to go into this part right now if you want to get the page ready. We're going to be on this page. As we start getting into close, let me show you how a fire escape is made, and was made 20 years ago, and how I still make the same fire escape today. This is part of the information we use to settle this case. I'm just using a tread as an example. This is what we use with a metallurgist that basically proved that a fire escapes rust from inside out. So that as soon as you see a rusted fire escape, what's wrong with it? Is it a paint job, or is that all the connections suspect? That's the only word you need to use. If I can prove to you that the rust starts at the inside and works its way out, then every connection you see on a rusted fire escape, the word is they're suspect. Who's going to prove that they're not suspect?
Not us.
A structural engineer will do a visual inspection to prove, no, there's no rust in that connection, or I changed the bolt. Or, as the code says, just load test it. Somebody's going to fight you tooth and nail. Dude, it's fine. I'm not going to spend any money. But great. The law says right here I can use the word test. Everybody know what the word test is, right? Let me repeat the code to you. It's not 1028.6 now. It's 101.3. I haven't had a chance to change. And it says, see if you remember this code. Testing and certification. All exterior bridges. Has anybody, we've talked about fire escapes yet? So all exterior bridges is on the 101.3. Steel wooden stairs. We talked about fire escapes yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. So all exterior steel
Academy
wooden.
inspector training. Here we are, low map.
That thing finally loading up. This internet here is as slow as molasses. Hold on a second. Yep, it was ready to go. Oh, it's horrible. Connection here is horrible. Sorry. Let me just put that back. Okay. So all exterior bridges, steel wooden stairways, so all these houses that have porches on the back with stairwells and stuff, those need to be inspected. Fire escapes and egress balconies. How about all those Romeo and Juliet balconies that have no ladders and no stairs off them? They need to be inspected? Every exterior, anything that holds people or firemen must be inspected under this code. Shall be examined and or tested and certified for structural adequacy. So shall be examined and or tested. What's the word tested mean?
You do something.
Load tested. Load test. Somebody asked me what the load test means. Right there on this code, it's in short form, but when we give you the book, it's a big page. This is a typical load test, right in that top corner. Let me tell you what a typical load test means. I've got this fire escape platform. It's 3 feet by 4 feet. I got how many square feet? I've got 12 square feet times 100 pounds. 1,200 pounds I got to put on this. I load it with 40% of that, so 12 times 4 is 36, for about 360 pounds, 400 pounds I put on this for about 10 minutes. And we measure it, at various heights. We take measurements, we videotape, we photograph, all under an engineer's oversight. And we see if there's any deflection. No more than 3/16 deflection. 3/16. Any more than that, I got fatigue on the brackets or on the steel. Then once it passes, the 40% for the first 10 minutes, then for the next 20 minutes, I put the rest of the load. 1,200 pounds of water, lead, sand, not people. Bricks, dead fish, you name what I could find that weighs 1,200 pounds. Or I can put a truck underneath it, and I can pull it down with a cable and create with a load cell. I'll get 1,200 pounds. Question? No? All right. So with 1,200 pounds, after 30 minutes, did that pass the load test? And no deflections?
I don't know what the time frame is.
It's 30 seconds. 30 minutes.
Okay.
So just pass the load test.
Yep.
I've got 10 stories. I got to take all this weight off of this thing and move it on to the next one. Oh, there's staircases? Now I got to individually do the staircases as a sort of a diagonal platform and calculate every little tread. Done? That's a load test. That's how simple it is. It's not complicated. It's not special machinery. It's weights.
Yeah, but it's
cables.
expensive, so the owner always fights it. No,
Very expensive. And a typical 5-story building with full metal stairs, cantilever to the ground, can be anywhere from $5,000 to as much as $10,000 to load test, depending on what side of the building it's on. Okay? And none of that money goes to paint or bolts. It's all money just to put in the pocket of the guy that has a bunch of people running around. You know what it looks like when it passes? You know what it looks like when it fails? So that's why most fire escapes will not be load tested unless they pass a confidence test, which is what? A verification that it's been refurbished and ready for a load test. So if I have to refurbish it and get it ready for a load test, otherwise I will never load test a fire escape, can I get you to not order the load test and accept the preparation of it in order to get it ready for a load test as a certification? No. I'm certifying you. Let me give you an example. I will take a tread, and we'll use this for every other thing, whether it be a rail, gusset, whatever. I take a tread that's got rust in it. And I take the tread, cut the bolts out, clean all the rust, prime it, put the tread back, inject it with silicone, 50-year silicone, put in 4 fresh new bolts, put the bolt in, and let's say that's the only piece of the fire escape. And now I'm going to load test that tread. Do I have to load test it, or have I proven to you, if I give you photographs of the repair, you came in and looked at the repair, can I use that as a certification in lieu of a load test?
Yeah.
Okay, so that applies to a gusset, to everything. You say, well, what about the wall? I said, well, wall, all new Hilti epoxy bolts into the wall. Because I tried verifying it, it was cheaper for the client if I just epoxied everything. You're like, oh, okay, I looked at it, very good. Oh, I see some welds. Yeah, I got welds. But all those welds, which looked good, but for verification process, because the closest X-ray machine to come in here was going to cost me, $1,100. I basically blew some bolts that were, as the engineer stated, either 1/2 inch, 5/8, or whatever, or multiples of that, into those connections. So I kept my original weld, and I backed them up with bolts. My bolts became primaries, and the welds became secondaries. Do you accept that? Are we still in the certification mode? Isn't that what the thing says? Certified? Some sort of critical process to, right? Examine, or test, or certify, right? So that's what we're doing. We're defining what the word certification means to you now. So we're really now starting to put you guys together with the owner or with the inspector, the engineer, whoever inspects the fire escape. And if he can convince you that he's doing everything possible to guarantee that fire escape has been refurbished, all visible and invisible connections, are you happy? Will you order a $5,000 to $10,000 load test on top of the $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 that they spent in repairs and paint jobs?
Probably not.
So that's what we're looking for, because it says you have the option. Everywhere in the country they have 2 options: test or certify. You have it in your book. You use the word certified. They don't even use the word certified in other cities. They say critical examination and or load test. Now, I've been in the business with my dad. My dad has hijacked me when I was 10. I'm 50 years old. My dad hijacked me. So I've been in this business for 40 years. I've only done 1 load test in my life, and that was in L.A. on a 10-story building. And not because the city official ordered it or the fire department ordered it, because the owner wanted it. We got another one going on in of all places, California, coming up in the fall. Not because the city official wants it, not because the fire department wants it, but the owner, it's the Bob Hope Hall in California, is getting millions of dollars of refurbishment, and they want it load tested. Okay. We say, it costs a lot of money. They're like, okay. I said, we're going to take a lot of money. None of it goes to paint. Okay, so okay for us too. So we videotape. So actually, in 40 years, 1 load test. But in 40 years, many certifications. And what's the process? The process is, can we nullify? Now, where did this all come to a head? It was when I was sitting in that room of depositions with 8 pointy, lawyers that have very pointy fingers. I don't know if you guys ever seen those.
Oh, yeah.
Similar to that Schwarzenegger movie, what's the name? The chick that has the finger, or that guy that has the long finger and you just stab. But lawyers have very pointy fingers. They want to point everything away from their guy, you know what I'm saying, and point it to everybody else. But the point that I started getting the word in there, that I said, okay, this word examine, critical examination, this word certified is opening up, and because every engineer, you go back and look at all your engineer certifications that you got, and at the bottom, you know what they have? They have a disclaimer there that says anything they didn't see, don't know about, they can't be held responsible for. It's called a disclaimer. I got tons of disclaimers on mine. You know what you can't have on this confidence test? Try to read a disclaimer on these confidence tests. There's no disclaimers. So try to get an engineer to sign one of these. He's like, well, dude, this is like a final exam. He said, yeah, it's a final exam. Read the questions. Answer them truthfully. And put your stamp on it. And they start like, well, exactly. Because you're trying to eliminate the liability for the owner, liability from the city, and put it on the people that know how to do this work correctly. And they're going to get good money to certify a fire escape. It ain't cheap. So remember, load test or engineer oversight. Remember that. The word engineer oversight. Because what happens, a lot of these guys are doing initial inspections and then they walk away and they show up 6 months later to re-inspect it. And what happens is there's been a vendor there doing work unsupervised and under a paint permit. How much you get for paint permits nowadays? What's the fee?
Paint permits.
They're beautiful. They're free. We love paint permits. So they're working on this fire escape unsupervised. So remember, you want these fire escapes done in one of two ways. Give me a load test, or give me engineer oversight certification. And the engineer oversight is just what it says. There's a document that gets generated. The engineer speaks with you. You work out a plan that the engineer says this is how we're going to repair it. They don't care what vendor's going to do the job, and then there's going to be 3 visits. An initial visit by the inspector while the vendor's starting up his work. A mid-visit to make sure that things are going well. And then a final visit prior to signing off permits with the city to say, she's done well. The other thing we like too is during the repairs, there's no painting of the fire escape unless the engineer has signed off sections. And if it's a big one, they can start painting sections that have been signed off. But there's nothing better than you as an inspector or an engineer going back to a building and there's nothing but blotchy browns everywhere that things got fixed. Because you can't hide blotch. And imagine, when you're done, before the painting is allowed to be painted, even the building inspector walks in there and sees all the treads refurbished, all the gussets refurbished, all the connections refurbished, and you know where they are because they're brown. They're painted primer prior to the full paint job. You got a connection with 50-year silicone. When's the next time that connection is going to get rust inside of it? Never. You'll be dead. But guess what this client has for the rest of his life? Repair problems or paint problems? Paint problems. Now, the beauty about that is that we recommend, too, that all people that work in your city and do any fire escape in your city must give the owner or that building a 10-year warranty. That seem fair? If I'm going to fix the fire escape correctly and I'm going to fill it with 50-year silicone, can I at least guarantee it for 10 years? And if you write another violation on that fire escape, the vendor will come back and fix it for free? Is that a good bar? Any connection gets any more violations over the next 10 years, they'll have to come back and fix it for free. Will that scare a lot of these landscaper vendors out of the field? Okay, so that's what we recommend. Let's show you what a typical connection is. Every fire escape in the United States, whether they're 50 years old, 5 years old, or 125 years old, was built this way. You bought a piece of steel 20 feet long. I'm going to use this as a tread, but this belongs to every support, every rail, everything ever built. You get 20-foot lengths of it. And you cut it to certain sizes and you start putting it together. You're going to put it together back then with a rivet, back then with a bolt, or back then, in some very rare cases, with a weld. Would I ever prime the steel prior to working with it? Anybody prime steel before they work with it? Nope. Naked steel that has either been outside for a while or inside and kind of rotting, but we use naked pieces of steel. Anybody ever put a flame to copper prior to soldering? What happens on the metal? What can you see? The moisture coming out of it? Anybody ever try to heat steel? Do you ever see that the steel, there's like moisture coming out of it as you start heating steel? So you got 2 naked pieces of steel we put together, we put a hole in it, we put a bolt. We make a tread out of it. Then we paint it all. That's the encapsulation process. Rust needs water and air to make rust. But as soon as you encapsulate it, what do you got trapped inside the connection? Just air. It needs moisture. Is it getting any moisture on a brand new painted tread? So when you got a tread, you got a connection like this, a lot of times the surface rust is going to try to break the bond at the paint level and then try to paint and drop from above. So it's going to crack your paint this way. It's called surface rust. Has it penetrated my connection as of yet? So in the first 5 years, you get Mother Nature trying to break into every connection. And you're supposed to go there, wire brush it, prime it, and paint it. 75 years ago or today, will anybody do that? They'll just paint right over it. So they'll let this stay. As soon as you put any paint over rust, what happens 3, 6, 9 months later? To that spot. The paint goes away because it just doesn't stick to rust. The rust keeps growing. So all of a sudden, boop, it pops again. Now it's going to penetrate to the next level. And that's in the 50 to 25 year stage. It's going to get all the way through the connection. All the way through that connection, what happens? It's eating the metal on the left, it's eating the clip on the right, and it's eating that shaft, whether it be a rivet or whether it be a bolt. And it starts separating. As soon as it separates 1/16, 1/8, quarter inch, is that, can I certify that connection ever? Guys are. Plenty of guys are out there, oh, that's a 16, that's nothing. But it's eating it's eating through the connection. This is where fire escapes now you must rebolt. You got a solid bolt in there, I got to take that bolt out, clean the rust, and put it back. and then silicone shut it and prime it. Most guys will weld the nose of this thing right now. But can we weld now based on the EPA 2010 rule? Can you weld on fire escapes older than 1978? So, and be working on fire escapes without a renovator's license? You can get the license on the weekend. You guys know that. The renovator's license is not a big deal. You can get a renovator's license on an 8-hour course. Now you let it grow 25 plus years. Get a 1/4 inch. Guess what happens to your clip and your steel? It's called rust jacking. You got an angle that's doing this, and basically as it pulls away, the only thing keeping this angle from dropping is this pin. Those pins are usually just a 1/4 inch rivets and or bolts. And as they grow, they either stretch a bolt and snap it, eat the inside shaft. But as it grows, the only thing stopping you when you stomped on it in the past was that the pin would actually stop the angle clip from falling. So there was a pin there. Take out that pin and put a piece of wood, it's the same effect. It won't go through. But now, 25, 50, 75 years later, it's so far out that the pin is no longer acting. So what happens when I hammer test or you guys step on it? You fall down. That's why we're having problems today, is because we're 75 plus years ahead of the game. When we went there to look at this fire escape, this is all the rest that was still on it. And this is us just walking up the fire escape with a bunch of lawyers, a bunch of engineers, a bunch of people. And as we stepped on the fire escape, treads were falling underneath us. Not the treads that the firemen fell through. Those 3 were perfect. If you can now make your notes on this sheet right now. 100% of all the fire escapes in the United States are basically built in this way. You have masonry buildings, and you have wood structures. There's only nothing has changed in how they're built today or how they were built 100 years ago. Every connection, every support into a wall that's masonry goes through the veneer, and it's only 8 to 12 inches deep. No more. They don't go all the way through. They don't go 18 inches. They don't go 2 feet into it. 8 to 12 inches deep. And there's no plate on the back. There's nothing keeping it from slipping up. It's just a piece of T-bar, angle, or C-channel in the wall and a big hole that they leave there, and they just pack it with cement. That's it. And this is what it looks like. So when you start getting water from the sills cracking and getting in there, it starts causing ice jacking, spalling. And what you're seeing is the spall on the veneer. You're not even seeing the spalling on the inside of the masonry wall where the thing is really tight into. So a lot of guys will come in here and they'll patch this up very quickly, and they'll kind of, silicone will patch this up, but basically we got bigger problems here. The first cure right away on this one is 5 inches away. I put an epoxy bolt in there. Go get me a brand new connection. Tell the guy he needs a mason to come in and do a bunch of things, but in the meantime, can I secure this fire escape by putting an epoxy bolt 5 inches away and then coming back and picking up this T-bar with a totally independent connection? And then I'll just seal this thing up whatever way I can, and I don't care because he's got other problems here that have nothing to do with me. And if that single can't work, I'll get a piece of angle underneath, run it, 5, 10, 12 feet, 15 feet, epoxy bolt that angle, and I'll pick up every support that I can if he's got a garbage wall. Satisfy you guys? Right? If I do the angle?
We probably want an engineer.
Of course, with the engineer. The engineer, there's permit first, forget the engineer. Permit first, get the engineer involved, and the engineer is going to be speaking with you about this because this is a solution, because he's got other issues. Mm-hmm. 2 staircases on this single C-channel buried 8 to 12 inches deep. Put firemen and people on that. What's going to happen to that fire escape? It's going to blast that wall right open, right? So a lot of times people do things and they forget to put either a leg on this thing or they forget to brace it back because somebody did some work on the wall, and guess what they didn't put back? So this is the second one. It's the same as the first one, 8 to 12 inches deep, single bolt or gusset, and a lot of times they have that thing in the bottom going back into the wall. That just drives water into your wall all day long. So there's another source of water going back into the building. Sometimes, and in very rare cases, 3 to 5% only you have a masonry building, and these are usually older, 100-year-old mills. They don't actually have it 8 to 12 inches deep. They actually have a through bolt with some sort of plate on the inside, or no plate. They have these donuts on the inside. And they tend to crush the single bricks, as the brick softens up or as the mortar softens up. So some fire escapes are through bolted. Not many. On the masonry side, every wood structure is through bolted. And as you can see, those are start crushing through. A lot of water gets on these fire escapes and they start causing ice jacking and rust jacking. Rust is very powerful. You have to eliminate the rust in the source of water and air to it. In Boston, this is a library. How long to grow 1 inch of rust? 1/4 inch is 25 years. 1/2 inch is 50 plus years. And this is a library with kids. Anybody like to grow gardens, ferns? Fire escapes are a great source to grow these ferns. Another way that fire escapes are made is that they just have a leg to the ground. Now you really don't have to bury it into the wall. You have to attach it to the wall with bolt into the wall. You can use expansion bolts. But as soon as I have a leg to the ground, my building is a leg to the ground, I have a bridge. This is the typical one. Okay, leg to the ground, and that could be expansion bolts. 5, 8 inch long expansion bolts. Doesn't have to be epoxy. Doesn't have to go into the building. I can do this because I have a leg, and my building is a leg. This is a leg. This is a bridge. Everybody concur? And that's what it looks like. And this could go multiple floors, with legs to the ground. Whenever you get a hit, what usually blows out on a hit is the veneer. What they very rarely investigate is what happened behind there. The veneer does not hold your fire escape up. Here's the through bolt. All wood structures must be through bolted. Any wood structure you see with a lag screw, multiple lag screws, is in violation. It's only a matter of time before the water wicks, rots the wood, and it falls. So any wood structure with lag screws, and you can tell the difference between a lag screw and a through bolt, because a through bolt looks like a piece of threaded rod that's been cut abruptly and has a huge nut on it, and a lag bolt is a head that screws into something, a lag screw. By the way, the answer to a situation when you have a through bolt on a wood structure and you can't get in because they have a finished kitchen, whatever, just put a leg on the nose. So you put a leg to the ground on any wood structure that has lag screws and you can't get in to put in a through bolt, as soon as you put a leg on it, you've eliminated the need for a through bolt. Everybody clear on that? That's the immediate fix. As a matter of fact, the immediate fix on any fire escape situation you ever have, scaffolding. Scaffolding with staircases. So if you ever have a situation where somebody's just dragging their feet on the fire escape, it needs to be this, and $1,000 will get you scaffolding for a month, staircases, and they'll tie in somehow to the windows and whatever, and now you got a month to talk to this guy because he's paying for the scaffolding. So you ever get stuck on any situation, scaffolded with stairs, and there's your temporary fire escape. That does work. And it is guaranteed. Okay? Staircases. That's what a release arm looks like. Everybody's clear on that, right? So now, every now and then, you have release arms on fire escapes that look like that. So a release arm is also an anti-theft device. Because when you have the release arm on, can anybody pull down the fire escape and break into the building? Nope. So it's an anti-theft device. But this one's open. There's that telltale chain. So is this one ready for that story with the woman and a child? That's what it looks like. So in your town you see, well, let's look at this fire escape. More paint than rust or more rust than paint? Right from where you're standing. More rust than paint or more paint than rust? Don't be shy, because what happens is black and rust, they're so close together, but on average, it's got more rust than paint. See all the rust? See all the rust? So do you need to even write a structural violation as of yet? Because you're going to write repair, paint, test. The chain is another giveaway. You write the violation, repair, paint, test. The cantilever's out of the release timer is open, it's not even activated. Repair, paint, test. You see a problem with the cement in the wall. Repair, paint, test. You'll never write any other violation. Okay? But this one is obviously, look at it. Did it get hit by a truck with a smash right there? See that? How about this one? Enough rusty tears to indicate that something's going on inside the wall. There's little photos called bragging tears. Enough weights on this thing so to counteract the weight so that the thing stays up all the time. Trash, smash. See the chain? Even after the smash, is it still semi-horizontal? Right? So those chains will hold things, but as soon as you see a chain on a fire escape, it's basically not a balanced fire escape. Can't really read it. Now, here's the greatest thing. You get a truck, a moving truck, a trash truck, hits a cantilever, or hits a fire escape. You know what that is? We call that a fire escape lottery ticket for the owner. Because the law says I must repair the fire escape and bring it back to operational condition. So a lot of people think I just need to fix this. Or do I have to fix the whole thing and have to bring the whole system back to operational condition? So that trash truck that smashed this is not going to fix the whole thing. Because will you let me put this fire escape back online, just the cantilever, and you don't care about the rest of the staircase? So to bring it back to operational condition, I must certify it or test it. So the trash truck is not going to fix the whole thing, regardless if the owner's been abusing it for 25 years, never done a thing. It's called a fire escape lottery ticket. Then a police incident report of a hit and run must be put out, and then goes to the insurance. And the insurance company usually will spend up to $25,000 on a fire escape without going for multiple bids. But then after that, they want 3 to 5 bids on that fire escape. Staircases, a lot of times it's not the stairs that are going to kill you, it's the whole staircase that's going to kill you. So they usually have a connection at the top and a connection at the bottom that keep it from pulling away, 4 of them. But every now and then you got gussets that are full of rust. Every now and then you got fire escapes that are not even tied back to the building. This is on a 25-story hotel in Chicago. One inch of rust. Treads in the middle of the night, you're coming down. Or somebody's coming up and these things are already missing. That's when they call the building department and say, guys, you're not doing your job, you're not doing your job. You're going to get blamed as soon as somebody gets hurt. But as soon as you initiate a program where you basically want to start tagging every fire escape, regardless of condition, right, for the safety of your firemen and your tenants, it's going to take 3 to 5 years for you to get all your fire escapes into a white status. Do you agree with that estimation? 3 to 5 years it's going to take for you to identify every fire escape that's in your city, and then to get every one of them to turn white. But the yellows and the reds, like a taxi meter, what do you have on them? Running consistently until they get to them. Fines and fees. So they can resolve their fire escape problem, but they got fines and fees. That it's up to the discretion of the building inspector whether or not he wants to void those fees. Little old ladies versus, slumlords, Some pay, some don't. Treads. The spacers on these treads are usually the bad problem. See, those spacers are little tubes, never painted, inside. And little 3/8 rods that run through them to hold the grating together. As soon as the grating has a problem, your foot goes through, you get your foot locked in these gratings that can't be fixed on the tubes. The way you fix the old grating is you make a sandwich with 2 pieces of flat next to it. You just squish flat, and that's going to be basically holding that grating for another 5 to 10 years before you finally galvanize. So rust is everywhere. It keeps growing, it keeps going. It eats everything. But you got to give it time. Rust doesn't happen overnight. It takes 25, 50, 75 years. This is school. This is where the kids have to go out during their fire drills. You know that the fire drill requires that you have to go on the fire escape during every fire drill? All the kids, twice a month, one's announced, one's unannounced, must use the fire escape. So So if a school has a fire escape, the kids have to be taught how to use the fire escape. It's required. They can't just ignore the fire escape and keep walking down the end of the hall to evacuate their kids. How about all these charter schools? Charter schools using old schools, or are they using old buildings? Old, what do you call it?
Mills.
Mills and such. Do you know that a charter school cannot use a fire escape if it has ladders? They must convert those fire escapes to stairs because, it must meet the means of egress requirements. So schools cannot, a charter school using a building that has ladders on it can't be used. They must modify those fire escapes to staircases. How much rust is that? As soon as you step on that, what's going to happen to the fireman, the tenant, or whoever? Ladders. You got a lot of ladders. Ladders are supposed to drop 2 to 3 feet per second. Here's some typical ladders. Those are 3. You release that just like going into an attic. They make a long, extended ladder. Anybody ever seen an accordion ladder? All up and down the West Coast. You release that, and it's just like an accordion, and it makes, a ladder 10, 20, 30 feet long. Ladders fixed to the wall. This is a balanced ladder. When you release that, that drops 2 to 3 feet per second. Otherwise, the only other ladders you have are guillotine ladders. And when they drop at 5, 10, 15 feet per second, when they pierce your head, what do you think is going to happen to you? So ladders must be. And then these goosenecks that go up and over, these are for firemen, not for anybody else. These got to be soft. These got to be there, connected and strong. These flop outs. Some of these guys have gotten smart because people were breaking into their building, so they cut their ladder in half, put a pivot in it, and they. So what happens when a kid or you or anybody just takes that ladder and pushes it over so you can get out? Or the wind blows on this. What happens with a child, a dog, or a fireman down below? When it does its full arc and swings and hits you on the head. It's a hammer blow. So if anything's a hammer blow, it's illegal. Make it a slide ladder with some sort of anything that makes it drop 2 to 3 feet per second. Let's talk about the plan. Did everybody write down, make a checklist? Any permit pulled in your city, ask for a current copy of the certificate, just to close the permit. Number 2, work with your fire department. The fire department has, the last thing they do is do the smokes. Just have them add a checklist to the smoke asking for a copy. So right in your city, you got 2 people that, within 5 years, every building in your city is going to go through some sort of rental and or permit process to do something to it in order to buy it, sell it, or use it. So on average,